Hello, I'm about to do the tag La Bella Italia, and I was tagged to do this by Book Chat with Pat, and as have many other people. She's an Olympic level tagger. So there are 11 prompts, and it's just a way to get us chatting about books. The 11th one is simply to tag other people, to say, you're it, you have a go at doing this. And I'm just going to leave that to your idea of what's fun. And if you want to do it, by all means do. But don't feel pressured. So, first prompt. All roads lead to Rome. To talk about a history or historical novel. I have one that I have mentioned before. It's called No Bed for Bacon. Humorous, set in the time of Shakespeare, Elizabeth I, amazingly written right during World War II, whenever you would think humour would be on a bit of a strained thing, but it's delightful, and it has a very similar plot, has appeared in Shakespeare in Love by Tom Stoppard, if you've seen it more recently. But Carol Brahms and S.J. Simon wrote together and are hilarious. So that's a book I'd like to recommend. Prompt 2. Wherefore Art Thou, Verona? Romance books or literary fiction, ill-fated lovers, perhaps. For romance, I would like to recommend a book I've recommended before. It's by Ella Montgomery, who did Anne of Green Gables, but this is a much lesser known book and worth seeking out. The Blue Castle. Simply because the heroine in it goes through quite an arc, starting off with being utterly disregarded in her own community and regarded as being a spinster and unattractive and put down, and then things start to change, and how they change and where it goes to is the story. In terms of the sort of star-crossed lovers, I would have to recommend the wonderful Baz Luhrmann and Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet as a film. Just superb. So good. A particular unforgettable scene is when Romeo and Juliet see each other for the first time. Just astonishing. Okay, prompt 3. Florence, Brushstrokes and Botticelli, books about art and music or artists. Well, almost everything I have posted has been about that particular area of books. I was one of the co-hosts for Framed in September, which was all about art, and I'm always bringing it into the conversation because a lot of the books that I have at home are art. They are poetry, they are literature, slightly more rarely fiction. Yeah, more rarely fiction, more often non-fiction and about the arts. So what I'm currently reading, as of yesterday, so this is hot off the press, I was at an exhibition and I saw some paintings by Barbara Ray, who paints Scottish landscapes, and well, actually across the world. This has got Ireland in it as well. And she had a few paintings in the exhibition yesterday that I saw, and I had to get a Barbara Ray book. I just love her work. And she's not actually, I don't think she likes the title landscape painter. It's a starting point for her and what she's thinking about. And similarly, a huge library book I have at the moment is about Joan Mitchell. And it's enormous because it's beautifully done. It's pretty much a retrospective exhibition, and this is the catalogue. And I find it particularly exciting because it not only has her art, which I love, but it also has a whole lot of essays and comments about her link with poetry. Her mother was one of the editors of Poetry magazine in America, for example. And when she was about 10 or 11, her father made her choose between either writing poetry, which she loved, or painting, which she loved, because he said that she couldn't do both. So he forced her to choose because she must not be mediocre, she must be just brilliant. It's kind of sad. But anyway, there's a lot of links between her painting and poetry, and that interests me as someone who's interested in intermediality where the art forms are crossing over, especially where there is text and something visual going on at the same time. Right. Prompt 4, Sicily. Myths of Mount Etna, mythology, fantasy, science fiction books. I was going to show you Fahrenheit 451, all about a time in the future whenever books will be burnt on site, but couldn't find it, not because it's been burnt, but because it is an incredibly slim little book. It's a great one to read if you're wanting to get started in science fiction, and I can't find it because it's so small. So instead I'm going to have Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and the humour that's in that, the imagination, the leaps of surreal humour. There's even little bits of philosophy, and it's just brilliant, outstanding. Yeah, kind of reminds me sadly of when the BBC did really exciting things with sound on radio. Really innovative, but anyway, let's not go there. Prompt 5, the Bolognese Chronicles food themed books. I do have quite a little collection of cookery books, and I want to show you one of them. Is utterly fantastic and is really one you have for the pictures, kind of a coffee table book. It's called The Party Book, and it is full of beautiful pictures of recipes I've never done, ways to lay a table which I have never used. I have done more entertaining in the past, but that particular book is just fabulous to aspire to. Okay, the other food book, and I really wanted to mention this to you, is by a food critic, invited food critic, A. Gill, Table Talk. Sweet and sour, salt and bitter. And in his day, he was the resident restaurateur critic for the Sunday Times, and brilliant in his writing and brilliant in his observations on life. I'm just going to read you a tiny bit from one review he wrote about an Egyptian restaurant, and I think it's safe to say he did not like what he was eating. And like many things, whenever you don't like something and you're critiquing it, it can be quite interesting. So here he goes. Wallachia sounds like something from the Book of Revelation with 3 heads and brazen scales, but it is, according to the menu, the delicious green Wallachia leaves cooked in lamb stock with cubes of lamb, ground coriander and garlic. Kebab hala ought to have an exclamation mark after it. And again, according to the menu, it is lamb cubes cooked with onions and spices served in a brown sauce. Both were offered in what is best described as dog bowls, and came on first sight as Stygian opaque soups with a thin film of liverish oil and a deceptive steaming calm on their limpid surfaces, as if some unspeakable dread lurked beneath. The Wallachia sported what I thought looked like a sort of green algae, and smelt so pungent that it might have revived coma victims. It was a smell that started as stewed garlic, but had underneath it more complex notes, whispers, and traces of timeless, ancient, immoral places. So, he was fabulous. So interesting to read. Now, moving on, 6. From Sardinia with Love, thriller, adventure, spy, heist books. I don't tend to read the genre, but I want to recommend a startlingly great film in that. Enjoyable, entertaining, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., the 2015 film by Guy Ritchie, which is set in Rome and in Europe, different parts in about the 1950s, 60s, with enormous flair. The clothes are astonishing, and the score is by Daniel Pemberton, and it's worth getting on its own. It's really exciting. Okay, just 4 books left to go. So, Venice in a Gondola with Casanova, Forbidden Love Affairs. Do a bit of a blanket this at first, but then I have the collected poems of someone who has had a whole lot of broken heart relationships, and that is the poet Wendy Cope. So I have her collected poems, which I heard about just about the same time as it was being published, which seemed a bit like destiny, so I got the book. And one of the poems one of the many poems in which she is separating from someone that there has been a relationship is one called Loss. It's only about 4 lines, but at the very end there's an extra twist to the tragedy of parting, which is that the lover has taken the corkscrew with them, so the person left behind can't have a drink. So she's known as a light poet because, as well as writing in a very technical style, there's also an element of humour and wit in her poetry. Okay, prompt 8. Naples Never Sleeps. Mystery, horror or gothic books. Well, I don't normally read political books, but I did get myself a copy of this book, The Last Hurrah, and it has got an interesting provenance. I just ordered it as an unseen, and it has come from the House of Commons in London. So it's all about politics, and somebody somewhere at some time has had this book in the House of Commons because they thought it should be there, and presumably people have been reading it and delighting in it, and it's reached the point where it's now been passed on and it came through to me. I'm only at an early stage of reading it, so I can't give you a proper review of it. Last 2 questions. 9. Tales of Torino La Magica, ghosts and legend stories, novellas, short stories, plays, folklore, etc. Well, this is not quite it, but as everybody who watches my channel knows, I am stuck with Dante in Purgatory. Still halfway through the whole of the Divine Comedy. The only thing I've realised that I can say positively about this is that at any given moment, since this book is being read by me at a snail's pace, that at any moment, if anybody asks me what I'm reading, I can always say, well, I'm never out of Dante. Yes. And finally, we have Musing in Milan, any genre, a book set in Italy. Well, I was studying recently a topic which was based on Italy, and I asked the lecturer, and she recommended a book just to kind of bring me up to speed, and she recommended Italy, the Enduring Culture by Jonathan White, which I have here, got second hand, yet to read. But since it was recommended to me by someone who is native Italian and a lecturer in it, I think it will repay reading. So that's my thoughts on the Italy tag. I hope you liked it. Bye for now.